Okay, so one of the most common inquiries that I get is from tradies or builders or renovation companies, where they've got a business that's operating. They're probably doing fairly well, um, getting jobs through word of mouth and referrals, and obviously using their existing network of friends and family to keep their business going. But at some point, they want to be able to grow and scale and get more business, or get a larger sort of funnel of potential leads to work on, to sort of pick and choose some of the jobs that they want to do. And they're not quite sure how. Or in a lot of cases, what I see is they go to a marketing agency that promises leads and promises this, that, and the other, blah blah, and they spend thousands of dollars and don't end up going anywhere. Why does this happen? The single biggest issue is that money will get spent on maybe an advertising campaign, either on Facebook or on Instagram or on Google Ads. The agency will carry out the work. They'll run ads. So they will create ads for, renovation jobs or, things like that. But what does not typically get done is looking at the brand overall to identify whether or not it's presented in a way that will convince someone to want to make an inquiry. And so what happens is a heap of money gets spent getting all this extra traffic, but there's no time or energy spent on presenting the business. And so this inquiry came through, and I've just broken down the email into separate parts. So they want more leads. They want to do renovations for bathrooms, kitchens, and laundry. They operate in Sydney. They want to target homeowners. They want to look at advertising and social media. They also want to look at SEO, and obviously they want to have a call to talk through it. So, no problems. This is fairly common. So what this means is there's multiple parts to the work that has to get done. So in other words, uh, what does their website say? How good are their socials? What is going to really attract people, because there's thousands of tradies all trying to do the same thing. And in this industry, in this niche, you have plumbers wanting to do bathroom renovations. You have carpenters wanting to do, living room, kitchen, maybe even laundry renovations. You have renovation companies wanting to do renovations. You have builders wanting to do renovations. You have all these different niches fighting for, this renovation space. So the first thing that I typically do is have a look and see what are they doing now? Like, well, how do I find them? How do they present themselves? And so one of the biggest challenges that a lot of I see a lot of tradies, I guess they don't know any better, or maybe different people have told them to do different things. But the very first thing is, can you easily be found? If somebody was to say, "Hey, go look up this company," can you get found? And so he had to have a couple of different goes at it to try and find these guys. And the challenge here is the name is not particularly unique. And so maybe they thought by, I don't know, using the word New South, it might help getting found in New South Wales or something. I don't know, but it's not necessarily a completely unique name, and that's one of the first difficulties. So obviously, a few different listings come up here, so at least you can sort of, hopefully find them if you type in the full sort of name. They have a website. I could find like a High Pages profile, could find the ABN. Um, there was a social profile that I thought was a name, but it's not. This is another company. And this is one of the challenges with, coming up with a name that may already exist, or it's pretty close to something else. To be honest, sometimes it might be better just to make up four letters that is some random word, because obviously there'll be less chance of it being, already out there on the internet. I eventually found the correct one, found their LinkedIn profile, and then I couldn't find their Google My Business profile. So these are all the, they're just little things, but you just want to be easily found. And the biggest issue here is the name here is completely different to the other names used on the other profiles. So coming back to their email, they're talking about they want leads and they want to focus on home renovations, etc., etc. Now, after a couple of follow-ups, this person we ended up didn't, no, not doing a consult session, and I provided the opportunity to fill in a marketing brief or whatever, and for whatever reason, it didn't go ahead, and that's fine. So I thought I'd still do this video because this is the sort of stuff I would have spoke to them about. Um, they mentioned in the email they want to focus on home renovations. Now I don't know whether they're moving away from commercial. I don't know whether they're not wanting to do, this facility stuff anymore and therefore, trying to change direction. I don't know. But right now, one of the challenges that, would be presented, I think, is that if they were really wanting to target homeowners right now, there's this really mixed, um, you know, pieces of communication on their website, right? So commercial, again, this is sort of commercial sites or they've called it facility management, but you know, they're saying they can do both residential and commercial. Then they're saying they're a facility expert. Then they're saying and they're a leading contractor. Um, and then obviously with a lot of promises. The thing is, if we were to load up another 10 or 20 different renovating websites, they're all saying similar things. So the challenge is, what do you come up with that's either unique or different, or visually, what do you show to sort of demonstrate some of these things? Because at the end of the day, if everybody's saying the same thing, why would someone choose you? And so the biggest thing for argument's sake, kind of missing here is probably some credibility. So in other words, the reviews are buried really deep on the page. I can't tell if they're real or not. There's no links to Google or anything like that, so you can't sort of cross-reference quickly. And it feels like they do lots of things without doing anything specific. So almost if you look at the page, it's like these two bits at the top have been added, but the original site might have talked about home renovations, or maybe they've tried to do this because they're trying to make a change and it's not working. I don't know. But this page by itself is very confusing because Google's not going to be able to figure out what it is they're trying to talk about. And even if I look at the technical setup of the page, it's been set up to focus on a one-stop facility management expert. I don't think anybody would be looking for that online. Nobody would type that into Google as a search thing. Um, home renovation contractor, home renovation service, bathroom renovator, kitchen renovator, laundry renovator, home renovator, um, commercial fit out company, commercial facility manager. Those were some of the phrases. So this one's not even going to have any chance of really getting found, right? The second one, yeah, it's probably a bit more in line with it. But when you combine all of these together, it's not clear what this website's about. So from an SEO perspective, which is one of the things I asked about in their email, this would all have to get cleaned up and made a lot clearer. So there's two parts of this. It's how would a visitor understand what they did, and how would a search engine understand? And so, you know, probably if a human went here and sort of read this a couple of times, they'd kind of figure it out. But definitely a search engine robot wouldn't. The other issue here is, they're taking you straight to a quote page. It's like, if I don't know you and I can't see any proof or I can't see anything to make me convinced to use you other than, I don't know, what looks like a stock library photo of a house talking about residential and commercial, why would I press this button? There's no real reason. Some little things too, it's like I can't really read these two logos. Why are they there? This heading competes with those logos. Then there's a button. The button's sort of squashed visually in between different things here. So the thing's quite messy. So from a user experience, from a brand presentation, from I'll use this term really loosely, convincibility. Sounds stupid, right? But it's like you've got to convince people to want to work with you. So straight away, there's lots of things happening here. Even this inquire button, it's like lost, in the white background. So there's a little bit of web design stuff here, a little bit of content, a little bit of SEO technical setup. There's lots of different things going on here. And so this is part of the reason why they're probably not generating leads or cold leads. So in other words, absolute strangers that have never heard of them. Um, they've obviously then got a blank page if you click on services. Then you go into residential, and the URL for this page is services 9 1. Never going to work on organic search. Doesn't mean anything. And then they're talking about they do everything from lock repairs to complete home builds. At the end of the day, like, I kind of get what they're saying, but at the same time, there's probably very little chance someone's going to call them to come and change a lock. And on the flip side, if you really wanted to focus on renovation jobs, then focus on that. Don't worry about door lock repairs because that's for a locksmith. Let them go do that. And so they've got some examples. I have no idea whether this is their work, but um, the $1 million question is to really think about, is this presenting, like a dream outcome for potential clients? In other words, this is behind the scenes photos. Probably be better off to show 2 or 3 photos of finished jobs that have been completed to sort of make someone go, wow, I want something like that. And so I don't know if it's their real photos, I don't know if it's stock library photos, but it's not mind blowing. So then you get into residential, starts talking about property maintenance, strata maintenance. Strata maintenance is not really residential. That's more of like a, real estate agent commercial service. Um, and new builds, yeah, okay, residential new builds, I suppose. But there's so much stuff going on in this page, but there's no proof. There's no, there's lots of words and stuff, but there's nothing really detailed explaining how or why you should choose this business over all the thousands of others that operate the same, offer the same thing. And so these are the challenges with converting traffic to a lead. So even if you ran an advertising campaign to this, I don't think anybody would inquire. And in fact, if this business had engaged me and said they wanted to run ads tomorrow, I actually would have refused. And the reason is, yes, it would have been easy for me to charge them to create a campaign. But if I know that those ads are not going to generate leads, at the end of the day, like after a month or two, they're going to be asking me, where are my leads? Now I already know it's not going to work, so why would I do it? So the quick invoice or the quick buck that I make out of creating campaign doesn't actually serve me. And from this business's point of view, there's no point wasting their money. I'd rather let them go and use someone else and I guess learn the hard way rather than me wasting my time and energy on something I know it's not going to work. So some people might think I'm crazy, but at the end of the day, if you're going to go to the effort of doing marketing, you've got to do it properly. Otherwise, it just won't work. And this is the challenge when tradies obviously, use contractors or use advertising agencies that literally will do what they ask and they won't challenge why, how, and actually will it even work. Um, if we look at then the commercial side of it, it's a lot of promises and statements. I'm looking at the back of a guy's head. I mean, I don't know if that's them. I don't know if it's a stock library photo. There's lots of promises here. The email they sent me was all about home renovations, so maybe all this is going to get removed. But it looks like a lot of stock library photos rather than anything that's real. So in other words, the intent, I guess, is there to try and pick up commercial jobs. But if you imagine you're a big commercial operator, I don't think you're going to choose this company based on one web page that's got a lot of promises about services. This specialty service page, no idea what this really means. It's kind of, I don't know, it looks and feels a bit like a template maybe that's been used. It has serves no purpose. Portfolio, it's empty. The blog, I don't know, these are blog posts that were written, looks like, late last year. Um, but they're not congruent with everything else on the site. So it's not necessarily a mix of residential and commercial um, information. And even this photo here, I pause because it's like there's an office in a walk-in wardrobe with a laundry. It's like, wow. So I don't know. I don't know if these would, convince everyone. Maybe some of the information is good. Really, what should be happening is there should be a separate laundry page, laundry renovations, and then maybe some of these blog posts supporting that page as a service. Um, you know, Even then, the question about what's being shown, like ergonomic layouts, this looks like a commercial laundry. I don't even know this looks weird here. Why is the guy standing in the middle of the room like that? I don't know. Could be an AI generated image. I have no idea. So, all of these little things go towards whether someone makes a decision. Someone might have just skimmed this and looked at the photos and gone, okay, that looks cool. But there's nothing here to show that they're doing this work, or, that they've completed these jobs and things like that. So, you know, some of this has maybe been written to try and rank. Some of it might have been written with a good intent of picking up those sort of jobs. I don't know. But all of this comes down to having really good execution, because if there's gaps and there's um, weird things that don't feel congruent, people are just going to look at this and go, well, if this is how they present their brand, how do they do their work? Especially when it comes to trades. Tradies have already got a really hard job trying to convince people because of, the reputation that general industry has, right? And obviously some of them do amazing work and some might not, but you've got to you've got to put your best foot forward to a stranger who's never ever seen you before, or never met you before. And so, even this page here, I don't really understand what it's about. So all of this comes down to execution. There's no ABN. This apparently was created in 2035. It's just a general Wix website, maybe just using a template. There's no links to their social media profiles. They haven't changed the template settings. Um, there's at least a phone number, but there's nothing about their licensing. There's nothing about examples of jobs. There's not a link to their social media. So it's a bit of a challenge to sort of figure out, who these guys are. So if I was a consumer and you sort of, I don't know, you're interested in trying to work with them and you're going to find out a little bit more, typically, you go look at what else is out there. So straight away, I'm assuming this is the same company, but the logo is different. Um, there's some interesting photos here. That's my OCD. Maybe some people don't care, but they're not straight. They're not professional photos. They could be from a phone. Maybe they're stock library photos. I'm not sure. Um, when you start looking at the description, then renovation, property maintenance, handyman, they kind of do everything. So it's not consistent with what's on the website. ABN looks like it's been cancelled, so maybe they're in the process of changing the name or renewing. I don't know. At least on their social, there's looks like some examples of work. Maybe some behind the scenes, which is good. But some of this stuff should really be on the website. Should be showing, some of the work that they're producing, some of the things that they're doing. Um, they've obviously tried to do different types of social content, trying to help people and stuff. So there's some ideas they're trying to apply at least, which is better than some that don't have any socials at all. There's no posts on their LinkedIn profile. Logo slightly different again. Different kind of list of services. So it's not congruent. What you want to see is a consistent look and feel across every single profile that exists. The same messaging, the same wording, the same offers, the same quality of photography, um, profiles of the people, examples of work, highlighting great reviews. Like they've got 20 or nearly 20 reviews, but you can't see that anywhere. And as I said in the beginning, I couldn't find their Google business profile because the name is different to the website and to the other profiles on the internet. One of the single biggest things or simplest things any business should do is the same name, address, and phone number across the internet on any social media profile, website, business directory, um, maps listing, because you want any search engine to understand when someone types in your name, you have profiles that are everywhere so someone can find you easily. And so here it's probably a missed opportunity because they could show all these reviews on their website. The other stuff, the profile has, I don't know, they're talking about they're a construction company doing a mixture of stuff, which is kind of consistent to what was mentioned on the website. But there's no posts, there's no photos, there's no like services. There's all this stuff you can add to your Google Business profile to pad it out and to fill in this section here. The challenge with their name is it's not super unique. So when you search for construction groups, you get all sorts of other potential results. Sydney Construction Group and I don't know, New South Homes, whoever that is. And so it becomes harder to stand out to be unique compared to some of other companies that might have a unique name. And so that's another consideration. So when you put all these pieces together, if they engage me, um, one of the suggestions I would have made is to come up with a new name, new logo, new website, be very clear about the services that are going to get offered, um, to really spend some time and energy around creating case studies or projects to show off different types of work. Effort put into the Google My Business profile to make that really presentable. To really look at social media to get a consistent look and feel for the way things are presented there. To think about presenting, because on here there's nothing about who the business is. Normally you'd have an about section showing the team or the founder or the people. So there's all these different elements that would have to get put together to create a baseline. So in other words, to create a starting point for this brand to then compete within that industry. And then the next step would be figure out how to beat all the other competitors that are in the market. And so, if you don't get the fundamentals right, there's no point running ads. There's no point doing social media campaigns. There's no point doing fancy advertising, I don't know, on a billboard or newspaper or whatever. You have to get the fundamentals right. Otherwise, you've got no chance of convincing one visitor, let alone 1,000. And so, these are some of the principles that any tradie, building company, renovation company, or even a service based business should be following. It's really clear about what services you offer, having individual pages talking about what it is, how you do it, reviews and stuff that are related to that service. Prove it, show examples of the work. So, in other words, don't just make all these promises, back it up with proof. Have really good reviews. You go back to all your previous clients to get as many reviews as you can. Have really good visuals that are believable. So not just stock library photos, real photos from actual jobs on behind the scenes, completed projects, so people can see before and after. If you're going to do blogs, make them really useful. So in other words, don't just put static photos that are created from AI or from stock library photos. You need to go the extra step. It's got to be video. It's got to be someone talking about a job or a scenario you solved or problems that you solved or how you help different people. So in other words, you're letting people into the business so they can learn more about how you work and what you do. And all of that has to be tied up with getting presented really well on social media with good content, not just one way posts that are, we are the best and look at this nice bathroom we finished or kitchen we finished. It's probably explaining a little bit of the work that went in behind it. It's only showing professional photos to really present really, really well. And because all the platforms want video, it's probably doing video content rather than static visuals. So they are some of the key elements that any service-based business should be considering when they're wanting to either expand, diversify, shift niches, or in general, get more leads.